Boris Johnson has promised to deliver a comprehensive plan next week on how the lockdown may be eased after declaring the UK is past the peak of the coronavirus outbreak. The Prime Minister said on Thursday he would be producing a roadmap, a menu of options explaining how to get the economy moving and children back to school while still suppressing the disease's spread. Mr. Johnson made the commitment as he fronted his first Downing Street press conference since being hospitalised for COVID-19. And he praised the NHS, saying he had been very, very lucky, but thousands of people have been less fortunate than I was. With the death toll having exceeded 26,700 and under pressure to detail a blueprint for easing the lockdown, the PM said, "We are past the peak and on the downward slope." I will be setting out a comprehensive plan next week to explain how we can get our economy moving, our children back to school and into childcare, and thirdly how we can travel to work and make life in the workplace safer. Read more related articles in short. How we can continue to suppress the disease and at the same time restart the economy. However, the PM cautioned that the timing around relaxing individual restrictions would depend on where we are in the epidemic and what the data suggests. England's chief scientific advisor Sir Patrick Vallance said the number of people being admitted to hospital across every region in England still needs to be decreased. But he added, the number of new cases is down, that's turning into fewer admissions, fewer people in hospital, fewer people in intensive care, and we're beginning to see that decrease in deaths. The PM stressed that the R-value, the number of people that one infected person will pass the virus on to, needs to stay under 1 to avoid COVID-19 taking off again at speed. Read more related articles. Testing will be key in any effort to ease restrictions, and the public may find out on Friday if the government reached its target of carrying out 100,000 a day by the end of Thursday. In particular, contact tracing will be key in suppressing the R-value by identifying individuals who may have become infected and ensuring they isolate themselves before spreading the virus any further. Public health professor Gabriel Scally was highly critical over the Conservative austerity program for having emaciated the system from being able to carry out the extensive testing program required. The resilience has been stripped systematically out of the system. You cannot, when a big problem like this hits, you can't just reinvent things and put them back the way you wish they were, he told BBC Newsnight. Francis Crick Institute geneticist Sir Paul Nurse was highly critical of the target, dismissing it as a bit of a PR stunt and calling for a more comprehensive program. Testing was absolutely critical, it hasn't been handled properly, he added on Question Time. The latest daily figures show 81,611 tests on 54,575 people have been carried out, though a time lag in reporting suggests it could be a few days before it is known whether the target was met. At the press conference, Mr. Johnson warned a second spike in cases must be avoided not just because of the death toll it would bring, but because of the potential to inflict even worse lasting economic damage. That's why we have to calibrate our measures so carefully and make sure we not only unlock the economy gradually, but also find ways of continuing to suppress the disease, and possibly find new, more ingenious ways of suppressing the disease, he added. He signaled that the use of face coverings could be advised as the nation eases itself out of lockdown, saying, "I do think that face coverings will be useful both for epidemiological reasons but also for giving people confidence they can go back to work." The latest figures from the Department of Health and Social Care show that 26,771 people have now died in all settings with coronavirus, an increase of 674 on the number announced on Wednesday. How lockdown could be eased in the UK. Ministers have faced continued questioning over the UK's plan for lifting its coronavirus lockdown, as European countries begin to ease their own restrictions. Italy and Spain are among those planning small steps to relax measures, while the Scottish and Welsh governments have set out different visions of how the current restrictions could be lifted when the outbreak is under control. The next 3-week review of the lockdown restrictions is due on May 7. But how could the lockdown be lifted across various sectors? Schools under lockdown. Schools and colleges have largely been closed, except for the children of essential workers, and it is thought this could be among the first restrictions to be eased. But Education Secretary Gavin Williamson previously said the government had no plans to open schools over the summer period, while Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab said it would be inconceivable without some further measures in place. Head teachers have previously been advised to start making preparations on how schools could safely reopen, with the Association of School and College Leaders, ASCL, suggesting a staggered return of pupils, with Year 6, Year 10s and Year 12s phased in first, if permitted. Construction. Some of Britain's largest house builders, including Persimmon, Taylor Wimpey and Redrow, have already announced plans to reopen building sites in late April or early May. Under government guidance, construction has been permitted if in accordance with social distancing rules, but many companies halted work in response to the crisis. The Home Builders Federation said the restart is expected to be gradual, being dependent on how far supporting suppliers and services, such as building inspectors, mortgage lenders and conveyancers, can also return to work. Activity will also be limited until the government changes advice which effectively prohibits all but exceptional house moves. Offices property services provider CBRE has drawn from its experiences in Asia to issue guidance to workplaces on how offices might approach reopening in the future. It advises against a full-throttle return to work, with social distancing measures needing to be reduced gradually and in line with public health guidance. Video loading. Video unavailable. Click to play. Tap to play. The video will start in 8. Cancel play now. It suggests businesses should establish internal task forces to consider issues around access to PPE supplies, touchless technologies, temperature screening and reconfiguring work environments. Social gatherings. Limited social gatherings could be permitted in an easing of lockdown, but should be accompanied by extensive testing and contact tracing, one expert has suggested. Dr. Joshua Moon, Research Fellow in Sustainability Research Methods in the Science Policy Research Unit, SPRU, at the University of Sussex Business School, said the government could adopt a slow-release valve approach to the issue. He explained a phased approach might see certain sections of the population, for example healthy middle-aged people, given more freedoms initially, but he warned this risked the most vulnerable suffering the hardships of lockdown the longest. Dr. Moon said family clusters could gradually be permitted to socialize, but could not make long journeys to do so, while most businesses remained shut. The idea is that within those groups you can quite easily test, trace and isolate, he said, adding that it was harder to monitor for people moving around in public. Hospitality sector representative body UK Hospitality has focused its energies on getting business support extended to places like bars and restaurants. A spokesman suggested that even if venues were allowed to open with reduced capacity, businesses would still struggle financially. The All-Party Parliamentary Group for Hospitality and Tourism has launched an urgent inquiry into how the sectors could reopen. This includes looking at operational challenges, reactivating supply chains, government support and encouraging demand. A report is expected by mid-May. Pub chain Wetherspoons has said it plans to reopen its bars and hotels in June and said that due to it having larger than average pubs social distancing measures could be applied. Retail ministers are thought to be considering allowing some non-essential businesses to open, such as garden centres and car showrooms, provided social distancing could be maintained. Lobby group The British Retail Consortium has produced guidelines on how stores could prepare for the easing of restrictions. The guidance draws on lessons learned from supermarkets in recent weeks to ensure the reopening of non-essential firms can be done safely. Advice covers limiting entry and exit points, using floor markings to outline social distancing and keeping changing rooms closed. The guidance also suggests installing cleaning stations with hand sanitizer and disinfectant wipes at the front of stores. Sport. It is understood Culture Secretary Olive Dowden has been working on a plan for major sports to be played behind closed doors when some social distancing rules are eased. Weekly meetings are to be held between the government, Public Health England and medical officials from sports bodies, with the issue due to be on the table when ministers review current measures next month. Key questions that need to be tackled include testing requirements, burdens on emergency services and the possible impact on fan behavior, such as impromptu gatherings outside grounds. Sporting bodies are understood to be keen to resume full training safely as soon as possible. Travel. Last week, low-cost European carrier Wizz Air announced plans to resume some flights from Luton Airport on May 1. Cabin crew will be required to wear masks and gloves on all flights and will distribute sanitizing wipes for passengers, while new distancing measures will also be introduced during boarding. Mr. Raab has indicated that officials are looking at possible checks at air and sea ports, with passengers arriving in the UK required to quarantine for 14 days. Meanwhile, the Rail, Maritime and Transport (RMT) union warned there was zero chance of ramping up transport services soon, amid speculation of an increase on May 11 or May 18 when a new rail timetable is due. Last week, industry sources said no dates have yet been agreed or announced.